Good morning and welcome. I should say good afternoon. It's after 12 with this hour change and everything else. Hope you're keeping well. We'll just give it a couple of minutes. We're just linking up to the Cork Mind Body Experience show, and then we'll get started. So we're due to get started at 12:30. So just give it a couple of minutes for a few more people to come on, and then we get started with the talk on Celtic goddess Brigit's role of illumination. So there you go. Just linking in onto the Facebook page here on my laptop, so I can, if you've got any questions to ask, just don't hesitate, type them in, put them up in the comment section, and I'd be happy to answer them for you. Okay, if you in already, Sheila Cairns says, good day there, my friends, brightest blessings to you, and the same to you, Sheila. Yeah, and Freddie, thanks Freddie for LinkedIn. So we're live on the Cork Mind Body Experience show, and to everybody in Cork, you're very welcome to my talk today on Brigit's Celtic role of illumination and the flame of Brigit. We'll cover that, get to that in a minute. So I'm just going to check down on the rest of here. Philomena Donaghy is in, says good morning there, and good morning to you too, Philomena. Hope it's nice and bright where you are today. It's the same here, and for you too, Sheila. A little bit nippy, but it's a bright, sunny, fresh morning, and yeah, after some heavy rain and winds, wild winds last night. Still a bit windy, but hey, you know, it's March many weathers they call it. Yeah. Okay, so just give it a couple of minutes. Numbers are coming in nicely. Josie McConnell says, good morning, Josie. Okay. So Brigit's Celtic Grove of Illumination. Yeah, it's something that I've been working with now for the past 30 years. Bernadette Mooney is in. Hi Bernadette, and Sheila is in. It's overcast in Plymouth, says Sheila. And Belinda Ward has just arrived in. Hope it's nice where you are, Belinda. So yeah, so as I say, this started about 30 years ago as part of my own healing. Josie McConnell is in. Hiya Josie, welcome. Okay, we'll give it another couple of minutes because we're not quite on 12:30 yet, and it's advertised to start at 12:30, and you get a few people slipping in just after 12:30. So we'll give it a couple of minutes before I get into the flow of it, and as I say, don't hesitate to type up any questions, anything that comes into your mind that you're curious about. Please do type it in, put the question up, and I'd be delighted to cover it for you. And don't forget, guys, if anyone out there is looking for a nice drum and in the drum making business now, here's one I just completed the other day that will be going out next week. This is about the same size as a barrel, so it's an 18 inch, and I've also got a smaller version which is a 15, and the 15 is a nice size too. It has another nice sound off it too, so here's here. Yeah. And don't forget, later on this evening at 7 o'clock, I'm doing the Journey of the Drum. Yeah, a shamanic healing journey with the drum. And this is the 12 inch. This is a nice little one you could buy for a niece or nephew or a teenager, someone who wants to try it out. Or if you're traveling abroad, this would slip nicely into your suitcase. Whenever the travel arrangements are sorted out for us all going on our holidays, which it looks like we'll be local again this year, but hey. Now, who else? There's loads of more people coming in. I'll just check the messages and welcome everybody in and give it another minute, and then we get started. Okay. O'Connell Love Resides. That's an interesting name. Tina, hello. Hello, Tina. Is that your name? Okay. So we're just on the 12:30 mark. So I'd imagine people that are coming in from the Cork area for the Cork Mind Body Experience show, you're very, very welcome. My name is Dermot O'Hara, for those of you who don't know me, and I've been working in the area of healing and therapy for the past 30 years here in Ireland, and I started back in the 90s, and came into this field of work largely through my own need to recover from my own depression anxiety and other problems that I had and my mental health issues. So it was a journey that took me through a process of trial and error back then, because back then when you had mental health issues, the only place you could go to was either your local doctor or the parish priest, and that was about the capacity of the support that was available to us back then. People who weren't really skilled in mental health issues at all. So the journey into the awareness of Brigit, the goddess, and her healing grove for me was a very important journey, because for the first couple of years of doing my work, I realized that there was a spiritual aspect to my work. And I remember looking at a book and reading called The Road Less Travelled. And in it they talked about, self-awareness, the growth of self-awareness, but at the same time there would be a growth of spiritual awareness in balance. So the two of these needed to come together and to be balanced. And what I began to realize then was that the spiritual teachings that I'd followed, I wouldn't say blindly, but faithfully through my whole of my teenage life, and was programmed. I was raised as a traditional Catholic. So to me, spirituality was all about the sky and up in heaven and a place that wasn't of this earth, gone beyond, and it wasn't really something that had much impact on me here until I died. So as time went by and I was trying to do my recovery work, there was an imbalance within me. I was very ungrounded. I was up in my head all the time. I was disconnected from my emotional body. I wasn't in it, and this was creating anxiety, and I was creating all sorts of problems for me. And this came from a history of abuse and bullying that I went through in school, etc., through my childhood years. Now, the thing was that despite all the recovery work that I was doing, I still wasn't getting grounded. I still wasn't coming into myself and, integrating the work that I've been doing for the previous 10 years. Because I'm 30 years in this work. I worked on myself for 10 years previous to that. And then before I went and worked with anybody one-to-one, I went off to the new college and done a foundation skills in counselling course. And I've since gone on then and I studied clinical hypnotherapy. So I'm a professionally trained, qualified clinical hypnotherapist. And the reason I went into the hypnotherapy was to understand how the mind works. Okay? And in doing that, I began to realize, long before I even went into the hypnotherapy, that I realized that, there's an imbalance, not just within me, but within society. Something is missing. And then I looked at society and I seen this male-dominated patriarchal system that was repressing women. Not only was it repressing women, but the spiritual teachings of the Catholic Church also repressed women and the goddess. So there was only a God. So it was just up there, up in the sky somewhere, completely disconnected from me, disconnected from the land. And the only way I could communicate with it was through the church, which of course is complete rubbish. The fact of the matter is, as time went by, I started to break down all these beliefs and get past them, because the worst part of my disconnect was the fear of the devil and the fear of the darkness at night as a child. So I realized that, as I moved through my recovery process, that, I lacked nurture, I lacked grounding, I lacked the connection with nature. So I had the pleasure of meeting a lovely lady, a high priestess from the British Druids Order in England over 30 years ago. And she explained to me about the land and the earth and how important it was to honour the land and the earth as the goddess. And that began my journey. And then I looked at Saint Brigit and I said, hold on a minute. There was a Brigit before Saint Brigit. There's a Brigit within the two that are the ancient Celtic traditions, the legends and the stories going back thousands of years, long before Saint Brigit ever was even spoken of in Ireland. So I went back for it and I realised, okay. And by this time I was already into my work of working with people and helping people to recover and to heal. And this is back in the 90s, and I came across a huge number of people who had been sexually abused by Catholic priests. So then I realised, okay, something seriously wrong here, and a serious imbalance. And this was long before the Father Brendan Smith case broke and the whole church was exposed worldwide about abuse. So you see, even then I recognised that there was an imbalance even within the church's teachings, that the goddess was not being honoured, the feminine was not being honoured. So I decided, okay, I'm taking Brigit back. She is my goddess now. So Celtic goddess Brigit's Grove of Illumination is created. And since then I've been holding this space with the goddess, and Mother Mary will be an aspect of that as well. And then you bring in, so there's three aspects to Brigit. She's a triple goddess. She's a mother, she's a maiden, and a crone. So she moves through the stages. She's come out of the crone aspect in the old wise woman area She's coming out of winter. She's coming into spring now. So it's the young maiden Brigit is stepping forward, her Himbog. And she's with us now. And then we come into summertime and then the harvest, and that will be the mother. And then we go back to, of course, the crone again. So the idea is that representing and respecting all of these aspects of the seasonal changes within, not just within nature, but the impact that they were having on me psychologically and mentally were huge. And the same with the full moon every 28 days, that affects our brain chemistry as well. So all these things have an impact on us. And within the Celtic role of illumination, we honour these through the sacred ceremonies right through the whole year and every full moon. Now, within all of this, there's the flame of illumination. And today I have the flame as always sitting with me here. And the flame of illumination is about enlightenment. It's about lifting us out of the darkness and nurturing us, warming, wrapping us in a protective blanket of Brigid, and being, or the cloak of Brigid, I should say. It can be a blanket too, it's nice and cozy, and being safe within, comfortable within our own skin, to be fully present in the moment. I'll turn that off there. So the idea is that the flame is kind of like the initiation process and how you can embrace your own vulnerability. And you know, you often hear this in martial arts, there's the gentle way and there's the hard way. And you know, you see people who do Tai Chi and it's so gentle and so moving. And when I first learned it and started to study, I realized that it was a form of self-defense. And I never realized this slow, gentle moves, the gentle push was like a punch to somebody when the energy was flowing. So the flow of energy is the flow of the chi, the life force that passes through our physical bodies to keep us healthy. It boosts the immune system and it keeps the body constantly renewing and regenerating itself. So it keeps you alive. Now, that energy comes from the earth. It's the chi, it's the energy that comes into the root chakra. And what was the first thing attacked by the church? Our sexuality. What was second? Demonization of our spiritual beliefs, the ancient beliefs of the teachers and the healers of our land. Thirdly, demonizing and torturing and burning healers alive, particularly female healers. They were called witches. So that whole thing was created by the church to control the goddess energy, to control and to repress the truth, to repress the light, to repress the flame, to depress people, to put people into a place of guilt and shame. Excuse me. And over the last 30 years of holding this light and praying that this light would shine into these dark areas of our land and into these dark organizations to expose them, and hence it has happened. And great healing is taking place, but there's also great pain and great anger being experienced at the moment. So the fire that's within us can be channeled in a constructive or in a destructive way. And some people implode it, some people explode it. And the idea is neither, to do neither, but to actually be able to be mindful of the response that you take at any given time. Someone said to me yesterday about the injustices of our the things that happened to our ancestors in this island. I said, you know, when you get triggered into anger, it's usually coming from a wounded part of your own history. And it's to be able to channel it in a positive way, because behind the anger there's always a wound, because we're protecting something, we're hurt, so we're protecting ourselves. So the flame of illumination is about going into the anger and channeling that energy into something constructive. So we're harnessing that mighty flame of energy, and what we're doing is we're bringing it in and we're anchoring it within us. And so you talk about the chi, the life force, the flow of energy that flows through our bodies. When you repress your anger, you repress your chi. You depress it. You depress yourself. And you hear a lot these days about addiction and trauma. So trauma is disconnect. And disconnect is disconnecting from our source of life force within us. And what we do is we disconnect and we go into the head. And then that's where we store up and we repress the memories into the subconscious part of the mind to move forward. Now, we survive from then on. We don't live. So we're not actually living on the fullness of our life force. We're only living on a small percentage of it, because a lot of it is being used to suppress this old trauma. So a lot of people will suffer depression, and they will go into addictions and other things because of not dealing with the past and being able to release it. So the illumination is about lighting up the past and helping people to process grief, anger, anxiety, sadness, and to lift it off people, to uplift people, to lift the depression, to lift the addiction from people. So the flame is a purifier. And within the fire ceremony, and if you get a chance to look at my Facebook page, and it's also on my website, which is dermotoharaonline.com. If you look at the website, what you'll do is you'll find that there's actually a photograph of me standing with a ceremonial drum in front of a massive big fire, and the flame actually jumps into the drum. And on the day that that happened, it was at a festival ceremony down in, where was it? It was down in Tipperary. And what happened was, this photographer came to me before the picture, she took the picture, and she said to me, could I take some pictures of you today? Would you mind? I says, not at all, that would be wonderful, thank you very much. So I said to her, look, I'm doing a ceremony later on over here. There's a fire, we're spilling the fire at the moment, so it's going to be a fire ceremony. Would you like to come and take some pictures there? She says, great. So off she went. That evening she came back around 8 o'clock. It was getting dark. And I said, okay, you stand over there. I placed her on the far side of the fire. And I went over to the fire side and now says, what I want you to do is I want you to watch and see what the fire does. Now, I had no idea what was going to happen next. But what happened next was I went to the far side of the fire. I lifted up the ceremonial drum and I started to play it. And as I was playing it, this massive flame, this is a massive big fire. No, it was actually a bonfire. The flame went horizontal, travelled over, and 3 prongs of the fire went into the triple spiral on my drum. And that was the beginning of the flame working with me. And, you know, up until that point, I had been working a lot with fire, with my ceremonies, and I always had an affinity with fire, the element of fire. For me, it's purification, it's healing, it's very powerful. And in this moment, I went, oh my God, this is amazing. So in the flame came, she took the picture. A few weeks later, I got the picture and I went, wow. So you'll see it yourself, it's on the website, and it's the flame of illumination. It's the flame that exists within every single one of us. It's a fire. It's the fire of passion. It's the fire of creativity. It's what motivates us. You know, sometimes people, I've often discussed subjects and I'd be, you know, so animated by saying, oh, you're very angry, aren't you? And I go, yeah, no, I'm passionate. I'm actually fired up with this idea. I'm so passionate about it. And a lot of people are actually afraid of passion. And when they see someone who's fired up with enthusiasm, oh, you know, that's too much. Or if I'm teaching a group and I'm, you know, I go up with the energy and I get excited while I'm teaching, people say, he's not very grounded, is he? I'm more grounded than they realise. The fact of the matter is the energy that I'm giving off, it's ungrounding them. And it's about passing the flame to other people and helping them to ground it within themselves. So hence the grove of illumination. And the grove is, of course, it's a circle of trees, oak trees, that where the Druids would go to practice the ancient beliefs. And within the grove, within the Druidic tradition in Ireland, we had Sheila na gig. And Sheila na gig, of course, is another honouring of the goddess and the mother energy. And it's about honouring the fact that the mother, the goddess, has the power to give life. Not the man, the woman. The female brings life to the world. She is the one, she is the gateway. So Sheila na gig, the vulva. So we all travel here through the same gateway. We come here from spirit through that gateway. So the Druids saw, and our ancestors saw, women as a sacred gateway, and each one should be protected and respected in that way. And it's interesting that when young girls would be coming to their moon time, their first moon time, it was a very sacred moment and a very sacred time. So the village would gather and there would be a special ceremony where prayers would be done and there would be protection placed around the young girl, because what was happening was she was opening to the gateway to spirit. And the idea would be that, you know, the local Druids would have known that at that moment in time she would be quite vulnerable with the first gateway and the first flow. So that what they would put protection around her and she would be held safe in a moon lodge until she completed her first flow. And then from that onwards, what happened was women were constantly honoured. They were constantly built up and respected as equal to the men in society. And that was, of course, to do with the Brehon laws, which we had in Ireland, which were all about people and community. They weren't about politics. They were about people. They were people-based laws to respect the people, to respect each other, and to build community. Nothing to do with building economies and banks and profits and stuff. It was about people. It was a people-based, let's call it people-centered communal law system, the Brehon laws. So check it out. And it was all about women and men being of equal, God, goddess, equal and in balance. And this is when this balance is lost, it creates a disconnect. And a lot of the work within Brigit's Grove is about reconnection. So in the reconnection, it's about going back to a time when we were connected. So rebirthing, going back and birthing again. So hence the goddess. I've never heard of a person being birthed through a masculine, a god energy. It's the feminine energy. And you see, this is the thing about renewal and growth. It's all about the constant cycle that goes through Brigit's Celtic Wheel of Illumination. Every year we have all of those ceremonies that I do right through the whole year, going through the process of embracing change. And I suppose you could say it's debriefing people from the old negative programming, which has been going on for generations. We've 1,600 years of brainwashing going on in this country, where the goddess was basically disempowered and repressed. So there's a lot of work to be done, and that ties in a little bit with ancestral generational healing, healing the family line, and intergenerational healing. And all of that is all included in the work that we do in Brigit's Grove. And we also have National Ancestral Family Healing Day at Sound. We launched our first one last year, and we're having it again this year. And we had a group of healers. We all got together, and we held space right across the islands, different places. We all went live on the page because of COVID, and it linked us all up on the day. And it was a wonderful opportunity, because other years we'd all be off doing ceremony separately, different parts of Ireland. But this year, well, last year for Sound Halloween time, we all got together online, and we were able to share and come together and hold this sacred space. And check that page out as well. And don't forget to like Brigit's Celtic Grove Illumination page, which I'm broadcasting from now, because it's all about building community. It's not about me, it's about people coming together, and this is just a focal point. And Brigit's flame, for me, is a very important aspect of the work, because it's about illumination. It's about shining light on aspects of our past where we have lost a part of ourselves, and going back there and doing what we call the healing work of restoring balance. And the same can be said about the sacred sweat lodge and the way I work with that. And again, it's working with the feminine energy, because the lodge is a mother lodge. It's the womb, going back into the womb state, going back to renew, to change, and to support change. And we humans, we don't like change. So with the subconscious mind and the way that it can be programmed and can be formed into focusing and narrowing our perception of the reality that we're in, we can be very controlled by the programming that can be put in there. And it's all about the power of suggestion. And we all know that we've been under a cloud for the last 1,600 years, particularly the women, being repressed by the church. So it's about empowering women. And it's about healing the anger with the church to move on, because if we don't let that anger go, it just eats at us, and we're still then, how would you say, becoming victims of our past. So in other words, if you don't heal your history, if you don't learn from it, you're destined to repeat it. And that's how it works. And as we say, experience is a very hard teacher. You get the test first, and then later you get the lesson. So you get the insight in hindsight. If only we knew then what we know now, life would be a lot easier. And it's always the same, because we don't see. It's like being a child, and we say, don't put your hand in the flame, it'll burn you. And of course, what do? We stick a hand in the flame, because we have to have the experience. And after we say, oh, we won't do that again. So you get the lesson later. Okay. All right, let's see if there's any questions have come in so far this morning on what I'm talking about. And hopefully that's given you a good idea as to what we're on about. Okay, lots of people coming in to say hello, so I better acknowledge them all. Philomena Donahue says, good afternoon, Dermot. How are you, Philomena? Josie McConnell's in. Roisin Dawson says, blessings there. Thanks, Roisin. Hope you're enjoying the talk. Pat Maher's in. Hiya, Pat. Patricia Noonan's in. Hello, Patricia. Welcome. And Karen Matthews is calling her friend Eileen Walker in. Okay, thanks for that. Yeah, so any questions you've got, I'm going to go back through a little bit more and expand on what I was just talking about there, about the grove and the purpose of it. And the idea is that it's about nurturing a space within our, I suppose, within our consciousness to heal the damage that's been done to the goddess over many generations, and to also heal the when you think about it, it's kind of like a gender issue, isn't it? The masculine dominant and the repressed feminine. So they need to be brought into balance. So that comes to initiating the men. So the men also need to be initiated back through Sheila the gig, to be initiated back to the source of their power, to their core inner power. Same way the women need to be initiated. There's a lot of women out there today, and justifiably so, they're very angry with what's happened. But there comes a point when you have to get past the anger and try to heal yourself, because as long as the anger is there, it's blocking the healing process. And as someone said the other day, there was one of the protests in town, and the women were going in. They said, we want to have a positive way to channel our anger, and that's what it's about. It's about constructively channeling the energy into constructive processes that will initiate the changes that's required within society for men and for women, because it has created a great divide. And a lot of it is carried on an unconscious level from generation to generation, from mothers to daughters to little girls. And it's about breaking that cycle, because we need to come into a more harmonized society and to bring up the goddess. This masculine energy has been there for far too long, dominating, and it's holding up the process of enlightenment for all of us here on the island of Ireland and around the world. So the symbol here that I wear is the symbol of Brigit's Celtic Grove of Illumination. You've probably seen it on the page as well. And this I channeled some years ago. About 7 years ago, I got an invitation to go to the first Goddess Spirit Rising Festival in California. It was near Malibu Beach. And I went across, and I was the first male presenter there, and I was honoured, deeply honoured. So when I got there, I asked the organisers, how come you allowed me to come in? And they said to me, you used the magic word. And I went, what was the magic word? They said, Brigit. I went, wow. Because I dedicated the last 30 years of my life to promoting Brigit as a goddess. Nothing to do with the Catholic Church, nothing to do with the saint, nothing to do with that at all. This is to do with the sacred feminine, the sensual, sexual energy and the nurture of nature that comes up through every single one of us here. Now, the flame then is part of that initiation process. So as you're working with the flame, it will touch off the wounds, the blockages within the physical and the emotional and the spiritual. And the circle or the grove is again like a womb energy that's held to nurture. Like we've done a meditation last night and worked with Brigit, and a lot of people commented at the end, so lovely, so nurturing. That was the word, nurturing, because it's about calming, it's about soothing. But you see, sometimes when we get calmed and soothed and nurtured, we get brought into a wounded state where we need to be able to grieve the hurt, to let it go, to be finally free of it. And that's the stages of the healing process, of course. And anger is one of those stages, and it's not something that should be denied or repressed, but rather it should be worked through. It should be encouraged, because it's the next stage in the healing journey, and it's a fire energy. So to get people to dance the anger out, to sing the anger, to maybe even to scream the anger out, and to physically move it through the body so that they actually purge it. And we do that through trance dance and through sweat lodge ceremony and through fire ceremony. All through the year, there's a cycle of change going on. So all of the rituals, the Celtic rituals within Brigit's Celtic Wheel of Illumination, take us on that journey. And I've devised a course which I'm currently teaching called the 4 Doorways of Brigit's Wheel of Illumination. And it's about going through the four doorways of initiation through the whole year, which take you through change. And at each stage, another layer is gently taken away as you surrender to it. And as we go through the different layers with the different times of the year, we're working in conjunction and in balance and in harmony with the seasons. So the whole thing is integrated. And the integration process is very important, because in the work that I teach, Advanced Core Illumination Integration Healing, the most important part of the healing work is the integration. Because if you don't integrate it into your consciousness, into your awareness, and into your body, it doesn't last. We've all known people. You can go to a lovely person, have a lovely healing with them, you come away feeling wrapped up and lovely, and within 3 days it's gone. It's not sustainable, because you're not engaging with it, you're not integrating it. So the work of working with the wheel and the seasons is all about the support that you receive from and the nurture from nature that supports you to continue to embrace your own personal growth and change. Everybody wants things to get better, but people resist change at every stage because of fear, because of programming, because of conditioning. So particularly men. Men are so stuck, and I know how difficult it is to transition across and to open up the feminine side within myself as a man, and to be able to deal with the vulnerability and to deal with the emotional wounding that's there. It's not easy, because when I went across to do it and made that shift after working with the high priestess that time, I realized that there wasn't just me involved in this healing process. There was all the men in my family lineage, going back through generations. That energy had come right down to me. And I had to not only heal that for myself, but heal what was around me and what was in my psyche from the lineage of my family. So it's an ancestral thing as well. And that's why we have the Ancestral Family Healing Days as well. And we have the National Day takes place on the 31st of October each year, which is Sound, the Time of the Ancestors. And that will be happening again this year. And with a bit of luck this year, we'll be able to go out and do live ceremonies. But we're looking for people to volunteer to go to different areas. There's over 220 workhouses in Ireland. There were. So each of them had a mass grave. The majority of them are hidden. We need people to go and search them out, to map them, to photograph them, and to post them on the page, and to help us to index all of them and have locations and directions so people can visit them on Ancestral Family Healing Day on the 31st of October this year. So we're looking for people to come in and volunteer in that one. So you'll find the page Ancestral Family Healing Day, and there's also a group which I'll invite you into once you like the page. So that's about that. Let's move on and see what we have here in the way of messages. Jackie McCusker Hornsden says, good afternoon, everyone. Anne Walker Somerson says, hello. Good afternoon, Dermot. Karen Matthews, that's it. Okay. So there's no questions coming in. I'm just going to keep on talking for about another 5 minutes, because we're just coming up to 1 o'clock and we've been on for about maybe 25 minutes or so talking. And I'll just end up going around in the circle, around and around, just repeating the same stuff. But the process of initiation and the rites of passage is very important as well within the circle, because people want rites of passage. It's acknowledging the different stages that you took from a child to an adolescent to an adult. And a lot of us didn't cross that bridge. We were still kind of in the frightened child place. We never got a sense of connection or belonging as an adolescent or as a teenager, I should say, or into adulthood. So the idea is that what we need is, we need stages. And of course, you know, in the old tradition, we had communion and confirmation, and of course, baptism before that, and the last rites at the end of the journey. But what we really need is, we need to empower people in life. We need to empower them in life and prepare them for life rather than preparing them to die for death. So the whole thing is about uplifting people and encouraging people to come out. So, you know, a medicine man said one time, many, many years ago, he says, many moons ago, our men became men at maybe 14 or 15. These days, we're lucky if they make it by 50 or 60. And what he meant by that was that the conditioning of society and the lack of ritual. He says the reason that was happening was because they weren't practicing the ancient rituals anymore. They weren't doing ceremony. And the ceremony was always about the village honouring the young boys and young women when they came to their adulthood, that they were honoured and they were lifted up by the community and respected. So it gives the person permission, rather than go around and go around angry teenagers, they were accepted as equals within their community and their village. And so they grew up within the village and grew into empowered individuals. They were respected for their individuality. They didn't have to go and compete with each other to prove something. Each one had valuable, individually skilled crafts and gifts which they could bring into this reality and provide for the village. So it was very much about drawing from what they came in with, rather than programming them with stuff that they should have now and need to have now just to put food on the table and a roof over your head. So back then it was about the rites of passage and at the different stages acknowledging the transition. So for the transition to begin, it's about going back to the beginning for a lot of us. If you're in your 40s or your 50s or your 60s, like I am, it would be about going back to a point in time in the past where you needed to be an initiated and doing those rituals now. It's never too late. I done my very first vision quest when I was, 40 years of age. I needed to have done my first vision quest on the mountains when I was 10 or 11. So by the time I was 40 years of age, I'd accumulated so much fear, so much programming and negative conditioning around me from everything around me, that it was a part of who I thought I was. So the vision quest for me was to go to the mountains, to fast for the 4 days and to seek a vision. And I got a vision. I saw my fear walking towards me one evening during the full moon in the woods. And I was sitting on the ground, starving and cold, just sitting there waiting for the vision. And this turned up. And what it was my shadow. It was the part of me that had accumulated so much fear, not just from my lifetime, but stuff that I had inherited from the intergenerational connection. So that was the beginning of me empowering myself. So in other words, when a little boy was brought to his vision quest or brought out into the woods and left, he was there to overcome his own fear. And when he came back, he was a warrior. But of course, the same for the women, the young girls, that they were brought to a sacred place, and when they were going through their first menstrual cycle, they were brought into a sacred space, as I said earlier on, and they were protected. And they'd done a cleansing as well. They'd done a vision quest of sorts as well. And for them, it was honouring the womanhood, their power of being given the power to give life. This is what it's all about. Women hold the power, not the men. The women hold the power. The women. That's why we get so many women coming into this work. That's why the men step back from it. They're afraid to surrender to their own vulnerability. They're afraid to connect with their own femininity within themselves, because it's almost like it's something to be fearful of. And like when I went to the woods, remember, I was surrounded by nature. I was surrounded by everything beautiful. And what did I manifest? I manifested my shadow, something dark and evil that I'd been programmed to believe was there to get me if I did not do what I was told. That's programming, that's conditioning, and that's manipulation. And that's what we need to heal. So when you come into the lodge, when you come into the grove, when you come into sacred ceremony and the fire ceremony with Brigit's flame, it's all about enlightening. It's about lighting up, lifting that darkness, that shadow aspect, not just from us, but from the previous generations as well. And no better one to do it than Brigit, the daughter of the two of the Danann. Yeah. And of course I also bring in Lug, the masculine energy, because you need to balance the two up. So, the goddess and the flame is very much about switching on the light. And it's like the light bulb in the room above you. There's two polarities. There's a masculine energy, which is a positive one. There's a feminine energy, which is a negative one. And when you put the two of them together, boom, you get the light. So in other words, there needs to be a sacred symmetry from the god to the goddess. and the balance within the heart space. So you've got the 3 spiritual centers. You've got your your crown center, your third eye, and your throat. Below the heart, you've got the solar plexus, the sacral, and the root. So there's 3 physical centers, 3 spiritual centers, and the heart is the bridge that balances them. But for the early years of my work, I was all the time in the God energy, off up here, completely unbalanced, couldn't integrate or hold on to the healing. And this is what happens to a lot of people. They go for a lovely healing, it lasts 3 days, and it's gone again. So it needs to be integrated between the heart, coming down in the sky, and then from the heart down into the solar plexus, the sacral, the root, down to the hips, the knees, the ankles, the toes, right into the earth. So you plant yourself like a tree. So your energy is integrated and grounded. Then it brings your conscious and unconscious mind into harmony. Yeah. So there's a gentler flow. And as it brings into harmony, whatever's separating the two, whatever's separating you from sourcing your intuition and your inner guidance, which is what the feminine energy does, will be healed. It's about bringing back the balance, healing the disconnect, healing the repression of the goddess, the repression of women. We've seen enough of that lately on the news and all this stuff with the mother and babies homes, the orphanages and the industrial schools and all the abuse around the country. So it's time to heal all this, and that's what Brigit comes to do. And the perpetrators of most of this, as we know, are the very same people who created this whole separation from the goddess. And, you know, Brigit, the two of the Danann, one and the same. The ancient Celtic lore, the legends of old. The Druids' teachings were oral teachings. They were never written down. This started with the monks in the monasteries. And that's when the stories of Brigit were used to promote Saint Brigit. A lot of the stories of Saint Brigit are actually stories of Brigit. The wells, thousands of years here, long before Jesus was even born, those wells, or some of them around. You go back and you look at Newgrange. That goes back over 2,000 years. I think it's 3,500 years old, maybe even 3,800 it's been dated, older than the pyramids. So we're going with, and this is the ancient alchemy, the sacred alchemy that we work with. And I highly recommend it. If you've never been to Newgrange, do go. It's a very powerful initiation chambers, and one that the goddess resides within, and you can feel it. Excuse me. My first visit was hugely profound. Shortly after that, something awoke within me. Before I was even on this path, I was triggered when I went in there. I could smell it within the stones. And I'm going to finish off with that, because I asked this British Druid's Order High Priestess, how could I, this was over 30 years ago, how could I help to resurrect the ancient beliefs and the ancient teachings of my ancestors? And as I'm saying to you, she said to me, well, as you know, there was no written word. It was all spoken, it was all oral. So go to the stones. They still store the memories. So I did, and I've been downloading as I go into these sacred stone circles and stone places. From the stone people, I've been receiving the instructions and the teachings that I now share within Brigit's Celtic Grove of Illumination. So if you want any more information on it, just come and like the page, or you can connect with me. I'll just put my website up here and you can have a look at it. And there's also, you can download CDs from there. There's a Journey CD, which I'll be doing later this evening at 7 o'clock. And I'll also be talking today at 3 o'clock about the Celtic Sweat Lodge on Chocolus, the Sweat House. And I'll be telling the story of how I got to arrive into the northern Yukon and do my first ceremony over there with a lovely lodge keeper. And yeah, there's workshops up on my website. There's also CDs you can download. And there's also drums. I'm in the drum making business these days. This is my little cottage industry I started off during lockdown, and I'm producing them. So here's one which is the standard size as a Bowron. It's an 18-inch. So if you want one, just go on the website, have a look at them, message me, and I'd be delighted to make one for you. They're made to order, so when you order it, I don't just take one off the shelf and ship it to you. I actually take out the wood and I make it from scratch for you, put it together with the intentions of focusing on you. And this is a little 15-inch one. And there's a smaller one then as well, which is a 12-inch be good for kiddies to get them started, teenagers, or if you were traveling abroad, you could fit it nicely into your suitcase. So there's the 3, and there's a 22-inch, which is a large ceremonial one, which is also available. So that's about it. I'll give you the website address. Any questions, guys, please do post them up. DermotO'HaraOnline.com is the website. I'm just putting it up there again now. And as I say, all that stuff is available. More information about my work and Brigit's Grove is all on the website. And do also check in on my Facebook page, Dermot Shaman O'Hara, or link in through this one, Brigit's Celtic Grove of Illumination. And I look forward to hearing from you. I'm on again at 3:30, guys and girls, for a talk on the Chakalas Sacred Spotlight Ceremony. And then this evening at 7 there's a workshop, Journey of the Drum. So, and then tonight at 8:30 there's the Hands Around Mother Earth Water Healing Ceremony. And we've been doing this for quite some time. I've been doing it for the last 4 or 5 years now. Long before lockdown, I was doing this live on Brigit's page. And basically what it is, we're working with blessing the water, putting healing prayers into the water, and holding that space each month to heal the rivers, the lakes and the seas, because it's needed badly. Consider we're 80% water. 2/3 of the planet is covered with water. A very powerful sacred element to work with. So we've been working with this for years now, and I know it's having an impact. And if you get the chance to check out Dr. Emoto and his fabulous research and experiments that he performed, taking photographs of the crystallization within water. It's like the little crystals you see in a snowflake. Well, they exist in water also. And what happens is that when they showed how if they put anger onto water, it would shatter the crystals. And then if they put love into water, the crystals changed and turned into beautiful symmetrical geometrical patterns. And that water is in us too. So if we're putting stuff onto the land and onto each other, we're impacting on those crystals within the water. So we're impacting on our physical body. So your thoughts impact on other people, their thoughts impact on you, and all together we are creating what we create around us in this reality. So when we talk about creating the reality that you experience, that's exactly how it works. Transforming it, changing it, nurturing that awareness within each of us is what this work is about. It's about bringing in and harmonizing individuals first. So as individual people harmonize within themselves, within God and Goddess awareness, and ground themselves in their bodies more, that nurture harmonizes you to harmonize other people around you simply by being. You don't have to do nothing except be mindfully connected to the earth, grounding and holding that space as you move through your life, and that will automatically support other people's need for nurture and bring them along on the journey with us. So guys, that's about the end of my talks. Let's see what questions have just come in. There's a few I think have popped up there now. Julie, Maria Niel says, you have to do this water ceremony tonight. It's always amazing, says Marin. Thanks so much, Marin. Yeah, I've got my water all ready to go for tonight. My lured water is here, and my Brigit's well water from Kildare is here. So they're all ready to go for tonight, and I build up a little lot. So if you're going to do it with us, have a little bowl with some water in it and a candle beside it to bless the water. Put it into a container, bring it to your local river, stream, or even to the sea, and just place it in the water. And there's a song I'll be singing tonight, which you can use to put the water into the seas and into the rivers. And I'll sing that for you tonight. And yeah, so let me see who else has come in. Julie's having a conversation with Marin there. That's cool. Thanks, Dermot. So informed. Thanks for sharing with us. You're very welcome, Marin. Great insights. Thank you, says O'Connell. Loves resides here. Great insights, Dermot. Thanks, says Pat Mark. That's great. Yes, working through the portal of the heart is key. Absolutely, Starseed. That's what it's all about. Heart-centered. You know, we hear this thing of mindfulness, mindfulness, mindfulness. But you see, this thing on its own is no good. It has to be heart-centered, not mind-centered. We've been mind-centered for far too long, and unfortunately that's all been left brain, masculine, male-dominated. We need to get more into the intuitive right side of the brain and bring the two of them into balance. It's all about balance, isn't it? This stuff creates the disconnect, bring it into balance. That's why I studied hypnosis. I wanted to find out why it was that people were stuck. You get them so far and then they'd revert back to the old stuff again, the old habits. They'd go away and they wouldn't make the transition of rebirthing. breaking through the old programming. Yeah. And then people say, oh, having a breakdown. No, it's a breaking through, and it's the nurture that's required as somebody is transitioning to encourage them to stay grounded. Because this is what happens when people hence have a burnout, they have a breakdown, and they become unbalanced. There's a chemical imbalance within the brain which almost becomes semi-permanent. And what do the doctors do? Medicate to bring it back in, to try to readjust the brain chemistry. Of course, the 7 chakras lead into the endocrine system, which secretes chemicals into the bloodstream which affect the brain. So the 7 chakras are all about symmetry and balance. So if you're only up in the top 3, what chance have you got of balancing anything? If you're in denial of the connections below in the earth, and you're told that the devil is down there and it's hell down there and it's going to, the everlasting fires will burn you forever if you don't do what you're told. Imagine telling that to a child. That's what was done to us, done to me anyway. And it took a long time to recover from that, so hey, it was a big lesson, big challenge, big test. And yes, out the other side of it now and teaching this stuff and illuminating other souls to move forward. Just moving back through the talk here, just see what else came in. Bernadette McDonald's in. Good afternoon, Dermot. Blessings to you, and the same to you, Bernadette. Lovely to have you here. Starcy says, so interesting. Thank you. Yes, guys, don't forget this evening, I'm doing a couple more things. Sweat Lodge at 3 o'clock, Sweat Lodge Talk. Then at 7, it's Journey of the Drum, Shamanic Healing Journey. And then tonight we have the Full Moon Hands Around Mother Earth Healing Ceremony, all in the one evening. So, wow. Last weekend was the same. We were doing the Dublin one, and we ended up with, what was it last weekend? I forget what it was. There was a big ceremony that didn't end. Spring Equinox last weekend. I forget, yeah. So, again this week. So, let's see what we've got. That's about it, I think, guys. Just checking the last of the messages coming in now before I sign off for today. Hope you enjoyed it, and it gave you some insight and some things to think about. Lynn Daly Wheel says, I'm warmed by this. It so helps as just feeling sad today. Lynn Daly, so sorry to hear that. But listen, just try to stay with the sadness and just know that it will pass. When sadness comes up for us, it's okay to be sad some days, and just to sit with it. That's the most important. Sit with it. It's okay to be sad, and allow it to process through. Just keep yourself nice and warm and wrapped up, and be gentle with yourself today, and call Spirit and call Brigit in to nurture you, as we were saying earlier on, and sending you prayers, and hoping that you come through the day okay. No doubt you will. And yeah, sadness is sometimes a good sign of healing. A wound is passing, something is lifting from you, And in these difficult times, being in lockdown for nearly a year now, on and off, it has challenged a lot of us to go within ourselves, to connect with our own sadness. And that's okay too. It's okay to be sad some days and to let people see you cry. That's very okay. That needs to change. There was a time when everyone hid it and pretend, no, I'm fine, I'm okay. So let the tears flow. It's part of the natural process of healing, flowing the energy, flowing the emotion, flowing the tears, and your heart will lift with that. Deep breaths into the heart space and grounding. Join us for the rest of the ceremonies during the day, and I'm sure you'll find them very supportive and helping you to come out of that sadness. Well, not that you come out of it, to go through it, I should say, Lynn. So take care of yourself, okay? It's going to be an amazing Sunday night, says Mirren. Absolutely. Thank you, Darren. Blessings to everyone from Ailish. Thanks, Callan. Thanks for Ailish. Martina Driolinsky. Hi, Dermot. Hiya, Martina. So don't forget, 3 o'clock, Sweat Lodge Talk, Chakalus, the Celtic Sweat Lodge ceremony. 7th night, Journey of the Drum. And the Full Moon Hands Around Mother Earth Water Healing Ceremony will be on at 8:30. All on this page today, guys. So don't forget that, okay? And as I said again, just a reminder, little commercial here. If you're looking for a drum, I'm your man. Drum maker. There you go. This is my new cottage industry since lockdown, so I've been productive, keeping myself occupied and looking after my mental health by taking on this new craft and perfecting it to the best of my ability. So there you go. I'm just checking the last of the messages before I sign off. Let me see. Geraldine Orn Nocton says, thank you so much for so much information. Well, there's loads more to come later on, Geraldine, so don't forget to check in at 3 and again at 7 and again at 8:30. That'll be some tight jump on it from 7 to 8. No, it'll be fine. 45 minutes and 15-minute countdown for the full moon. Today is the full moon. Blessed be grandmother full moon. To you all, have a lovely afternoon. See you again soon. Take care. Thanks for checking in. And do please like the page, Brigit's Celtic Grove of Illumination. I'm coming from now. To all my friends in Cork, take care. See you soon. Thank you all. Gurmagat. Islam.